So the purpose is to actually create a platform for us to let the older Levites to impart to the younger ones amongst us. And to be honest, our ministry has grown tremendously, and we have a lot of young budding worshippers now in our ministry. So I felt that it is a good opportunity to let the older ones uh, uh, Elder James and Tina, or even Elder Kevin, and many more, to share with us, their journey in the worship ministry and some of the things and tips that we can learn from them. So we're going to start off our first session, and do put on your Zoom clap. Let's welcome Elder James Lee. All yours, Elder.
Okay, thanks, Susan. Okay, first and foremost, thank you everyone for taking the time off your precious Saturday morning to come and join this session. When Pastor Susan first shared with me the objective, the intent for having this series, I thought, yeah, this is really a very brilliant way for us to connect. For the longest time, I've been thinking, how can, the leadership better connect with the worship team members, given that we're now so big and we're so scattered across all the different services. Worship team has become more like what I call the 做工 kind of ministry. Basically, you just turn up, right, to do your duty, to rehearse, to play, and then after that you are back, to wherever you came from. And it is only during that period of rehearsal and playing that you have that small interaction within your team. Right, so as a result, we can become quite fragmented, and communication has largely been just by way of WhatsApp and email and all that. So I thought having a platform like this is actually quite good. Okay, now in case you think that this is going to be a mini sermon series kind of thing, right? Let me assure you, no. Okay, the whole objective, the whole idea of having this session is really to share, okay? And when Pastor Susan said in part, I have to put a huge qualifier first. But in part, I don't mean, or at least I don't intend to do it this morning, right? In part, biblical knowledge, and our theology of worship and all that. I think that has its place for another occasion. What I want to do this morning is really to share lives, and I would like to just share with you guys a little bit about my journey, how I end up becoming a worship drummer, and then how I ended up in Lsbc, how I ended up in Lsbc worship team, okay, and sort of like then end off with sharing a little bit of my heart, of my take on where we are today and where I hope we can head towards for the future. And then after that, we will open up for a time of Q&A, sharing, whatever. There are leaders here as well, so please feel free to chime in also later during the open discussion session, right, to share any thing that you may want to share in your heart. We are planning to keep this session short, so it's just going to be 1 hour. Okay, so hopefully this will be a fruitful 1 hour for all of us. Okay, so let's start. Maybe I'll start with sharing a little bit about my life. How did I end up playing the drums? Okay. Now, as a kid, I was always interested in music, okay, but I had no access to music lessons because basically my family was just too poor to afford it. So I never had any piano lesson, violin lesson, and of course, needless to say, drums was out of the way. So I picked up interest in the drums through actually listening to pop music, and I am particularly drawn to the drum beat at the back, right? So I'll try and imagine, because I haven't seen how drummers play. I try and imagine, okay, if I were to be playing the drums, what kind of coordination I would need and all that. So that was it, And so for many years, that's all I had, listening to music and trying to imagine that I'm playing drums and all that. Some people call that air drumming. I don't know if you all have heard of that phrase. Basically, just imagine, yeah. My real opportunity to play drums came when I became a Christian and I started attending church. So I was attending this very small church. They had a building which really was just, I think it was a 3-story inter-terrace kind of unit. Okay, and I would attend the youth service. Now, at the second floor where all the services are conducted, there is a drum kit right at the corner. All right, so after service, I will go and fiddle, play around with it and all that. Now, my opportunity came one day when the drummer on duty didn't turn up. So the whole band was there, the service was there, but the drummer was not there. So I, a bit kekang lah, so I volunteered to just stand in for the drummer, even though I've never ever played drums in a band before. So I went there and all I could do was to hold a beat. As you can imagine, right? The first time you play, you can't do anything else pretty much. And I survived. The worship session actually went through. And then after that, they invited me to join the worship team. And that was how my drumming journey began. In that very first church, besides the drum kit, they also worship in a hotel. And so in the hotel, sometimes they bring the drum kit, sometimes they will not. And when they didn't, they will use this, what we call the drum machine. Some of y'all would know what is it. It's basically like your current pad, like that, that 3x3 or 4x4. And you just program, which pad is what key, and then you use your fingers to play. So I became quite a decent finger drummer, for many years. So that was the next phase of my growth as a drummer. But my real growth actually came when I left my first church and I joined New Creation Church. Some of you all may know. I joined New Creation Church. I auditioned for the worship team since my background was a drummer in the worship team, right? And surprisingly, I got in. Yeah. But when I got in and had my first rehearsal, I had a huge culture shock because everything was so different. The standard was so high. So already when I observed the rehearsal, I could see, okay, this is going to be quite stressful. And then when it came to my very first rehearsal, wow, I got scolded so much. Yeah. So, so one of the things about the culture over there at that time was that everything has got to be perfect on it. So when you rehearse a song, it's not like, okay, this is the song, and then you figure out, how you play, and you play your own style, so to speak. Pretty much like what I was doing in my first church. Here is, you must know your part, and you must know it exactly like how the CD plays it. Yeah. So needless to say, I wasn't at that standard yet, and kena scolded, kena embarrassed, kena humiliated lah. So often they will have these things like, okay, everybody go and take a break, drummer stay behind, and then the band leader will, it was a very tough and very humbling experience, but it was also a period where I had huge growth in my development as a drummer and in my development as a musician. So a lot of the knowledge that I eventually managed to bring to Lsbc, I actually gained at New Creation Church. The technical knowledge about structuring music, arranging music, rehearsing, how to get parts right, how to practice. Yeah, a lot of that I learned in New Creation. Of course, mostly through the hard way lah. That means, kena criticize, kena scolded, left, right, center, and all that. The other culture that was especially stressful over there is, they don't have a system where you are spread out evenly. Now there, the system is the best play. Yeah, so the best player plays. So every Sunday on stage, right? Whoever is on stage, unless the best player is not available, usually it is the best team lah. Yeah, so you also have this very competitive, culture going on. Everybody is trying to get into the team and all that. Looking back, not something that I enjoy and not something that I want to replicate, and which is why it was also not something that that I brought to Lsbc. Yeah, but in that very stressful environment, I grew a lot. My skin became thicker. I learned how to take scolding. Yeah, I learned how to just get down to practicing until you become good enough. Yeah, and I think that was the positive thing, the biggest positive thing that I developed my character. So then, some of you may know my story. After that, I left New Creation, backslidden for a couple of years. But even during that backslidden stage, I had the opportunity to play drum still. My friend who left together with me, when we left New Creation Church, he actually came down to Lsbc. Some of you may know him, Thomas. This big fella, big fat fella. And because he was already very experienced and very good bassist, so he came in and sort of began to run the worship team in Lsbc because Lsbc team was really, really very young at that time, still in a very, very nascent stage. I will share a little bit more later about, some of the funny things that we used to do. Yeah, I think Ben here will know and remember. So he invited me to occasionally come back to Lsbc to play drums because we didn't have enough lah. Yeah, so I will do so lah when I'm free lah. Yeah, and of course when I came, it wasn't with the I'm part of the church, that kind of mentality. Or it was more of like I'm doing you guys a favor kind of mentality. Yeah, very arrogant, very cocky. Yes, so very, very bad attitude. Yeah, and I came. But during that time, because I wasn't attending church, right? So I was mostly in pubs and places where there are a lot of music, live music, and I was drawn to that. And I will try and go and watch the drama, try and introduce myself, try and make friends, and then try and steal lessons. Yeah, go and ask them, hey, just how you did that, can you show me how you do it? That kind of thing. So I learned from a lot of these kind of occasions where I just go and watch a professional drummer play and I try and be thick-skinned, and ask questions. Yeah, but I also had the opportunity to play in church, right, when I was invited to play in Lsbc. Looking back again, I felt very embarrassed also for my very bad attitude during that time, coming in late for rehearsal and then being so cocky and thinking that I'm better than everybody else. That's why I don't need to come so early, for rehearsal. Very, very stinky attitude lah. Yeah, but everybody tolerated me. And I think God also was not letting me go, because on those occasions where I came back and play and all that, the few occasions where I actually was paying attention to the sermon, SP will be preaching, and the sermon about the prodigal son, kept coming out, man. Yeah, so I remember God was speaking to me even, through those occasions to come back to church. Yeah, and also during those occasions when I played, I also got to know Sharon, my wife. Yeah, so that's how I met her actually. Yeah, by playing for Lsbc in church. So eventually, I decided to come back to church, and of course, Lsbc is the natural place, right? So I came back, joined the worship team, and I realized that the worship team really was a very, very different from how I used to operate when I was like New Creation, where things were really, really very professionally done. So just to give you an idea, for example, when I go and play on Sunday, I don't need to adjust the drum kit for myself. I just need to sit there and I tell my drum tech what to do. So I literally have one guy, one kakia with me to basically serve me lah. Yeah, adjust my drum kit, make sure I have this, make sure I have that, make sure I have my drink, that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's a very professional environment. So coming to Lsbc, don't have everything you gotta do yourself. That's one thing. But I think the biggest shock for me was the technical level of everybody at the time. Those who have grown up with Lsbc will know, right? We started as a very small church. So understandably, the talent pool was limited, the experience was limited, and despite having Thomas with them for a couple of years, things didn't really pick up, okay? And just to give you an idea of how things were at that time, rehearsal will typically go like that, okay? You turn up, all right? The worship leader tell you, okay, we're going to do 5 songs, right? So you know the 5 songs. And then let's jam through the first song. So we will just play lah. And it's a big mess, right? Because you have people playing it for the first time. You have people not knowing the chords. You have drummer going out of time. Right? So it's one big mess. So you pull through the whole song. Then the worship leader, I still remember my first rehearsal, I was just waiting for the worship leader to say, okay, we need to walk the intro, which was disastrous. And then, the verse to the chorus, that part, really everybody crashed. Surprisingly, the worship leader say, okay, very good. Let's go to the next song. I was shocked. I was like, huh? How is that very good, Yeah. But since it's the first time I'm playing, so I kept quiet, okay, then go to the second song, third song, fourth song. Every song is the same. Just as messy, full of mistakes. And each song only run through once. After the 5th song, worship leader said, okay, see you guys tomorrow. It's like, what was that? Yeah. So of course, needless to say, the next day, worship was like that lah. Pretty much quite similar, to what happened at the rehearsal. Only slightly better because now we have at least played through the song once. Albeit it was a big mess. Yeah. So after a while, the few of us decided, hey, this cannot go on, So the few of us would be myself. Suwan is no longer with us. You know who is Suwan, right? And then Sheila, right, who also is not with us now, but I think many of you will know who she is. She was with us for the longest time as well. And then we have Matthias Tan, Cohen's and Liam's daddy, okay, and Cynthia, his wife, okay, they were with us as well. So the five of us decided, hey, let's do something, let's get together, let's get some structure going on, let's rally everybody and let's improve. We really want to improve. Okay, so that was when I then shared all my experience from New Creation, and I tried to implement, things to kickstart whatever that we were trying to do. So some of the things we did was music arrangement. That means I will work out a chart, for everybody. And this is a very, very layman's chart because I don't read Taugeh, I don't write Taugeh. Okay, I am a self-taught musician. A lot of the musical tools that you all are very, very fluent with now, right? Especially the young ones, those are alien to me, totally alien. Okay, I'm not like Pastor Susan, who is a trained and well grounded musician. So I use Microsoft Word. Draw table, okay? You imagine with me on the leftmost column, all the different instruments, right? And then header on the top row is the different parts of the song, right? And then each part of the song, what each instrument is supposed to play, I will write, describe and all that. And then I'll send out the chart to everybody. Okay, everyone go and read, okay, before the rehearsal. So I'll try to send out 1 week ahead. And initially was still, we can't really feel it, but eventually we became more coordinated in our playing, and then when we start to improve and start to sound better, people got more and more excited. And that was how the momentum kickstart. And that's where we then began to introduce small things. A lot of things that are standard today was started during that period. Like having standard groupings, having worship leaders tag to band leaders, tag to musicians, right? And then sending out rep early, making sure that everybody prepared and all that. Yeah, those were done during that time. Yeah, and slowly but gradually we improve. Now, the thing I must say is this: even though our worship music was not that great, every Sunday, if you're a trained musician, right, you will be able to pick up at least 5 mistakes in every song, minimum 5 mistakes. And if you are a trained musician, honestly, from a technical perspective, you will not enjoy, the music that was being played. But in spite of all that, despite of all of that, the anointing and the presence of God was always there. And that's something that I felt is a special grace that God has given to us. Really, honest to heart, from day one, when our music was so bad, and until today, where we are a lot better than, back then, the anointing of God and the presence of God during worship, is still just as strong. Not that, I'm not saying that there was no difference made, in terms of the technical improvement that we've made, but that this can only be, attributed to the special grace of God that He has given Lsbc this special grace of worship. And it's not just me, I have heard so many testimonies of people coming in and they were touched by the worship. People who have been hurt, they came and the worship ministered to them. People have been dry, backslidden. Me, for example, the worship spoke to me. Every time during worship, I was crying, and I'm telling myself, how can I be crying to such lousy music? But yeah, God was doing a work in my heart. I've even heard of people getting saved, through worship. After the worship, they felt the presence of God so real, that they decided, to accept Christ. And so that's a special and very precious anointing that God has given us in Lsbc, to the worship team. And many years of hard work, many years of faithful service by many of us. Some of you are here. We went through ups and downs and all that. And then after that, finally, God brought us Pastor Susan. She came, I thought she brought us to another level, another level of competence, another level of professionalism. And she could do a lot of things that I couldn't do because I'm a layperson. And for a very, very long time, I felt that as the team grew, I wasn't able to connect with people at the individual level as much because there were so many other things that I had to juggle, right? My cell leadership, and then later on I became an elder, and there were a lot more things to do as well. So when Pastor Susan came, not only did she bring about a new perspective, a new approach, a new level of competency, she also brought a new level of pastoral care, and I think many of you here are beneficiaries of that. Many of you all had, I heard, right, late night conversations with her and all that, sharing your heart, sharing your lives. And that's something that I could never have done, without Pastor Susan. So to cut the long story short, here we are today, right? We have multiple bands, all highly competent, serving in the main service, in the Chinese service, in the youth service. Even the children church band, has improved. And God continually bring very competent, very committed, and very good people into our midst to join us. And we have even professionals, and teachers, music teachers in our midst. And that's really testament to God's grace. And it really shows how, when we decide to work together as a team, right, God can do wonders. And talking about teamwork, I think that's also another thing that I'm very, very proud, of ourselves. The biggest problem with worship teams at all churches has always been this: egos. Right? I think Pastor Susan probably has seen more than my share. I've seen a lot of that in New Creation Church. I've seen a lot of that in my interactions with worship bands in other churches, because I had the opportunity to play with them as well. I had the opportunity to play in big meetings, in the indoor stadium. I even had, the opportunity to play with Bob Fitz, as some of you all will know, right? Integrity Music worship leader and all. So I had a lot of exposure to a lot of new church musicians across Singapore. And the part that always bugs me is this, that the level of ego really was generally quite high. Everybody seems to think very highly of themselves or their gear. And then you have diva attitudes and all that. But it seems to be tolerated a lot because maybe they have a skill set that is very cherished, and nobody else can do what they do. And so generally, this kind of behavior are sort of more managed than trying to, to correct them. But in Lsbc, thankfully, when we started, we don't have this kind of people, because all of us were really not that good, right? Enough to have any ego. We were just basically a lot of them were just I serve because there wasn't anybody else. I try my best. I try to give whatever I can. So the attitude from the beginning was good. Although I had a different struggle back then also, right? Everybody will come and tell me that, James, it's not about the skill, it's about the heart. Yeah. Which I cannot also totally disagree, because it is true. Right? On Sunday, when everybody played so badly, God still turned up. But then it was a huge battle that I had to fight to get people to improve. Right? I mean, how do you argue with someone, right, like that? Yeah. But anyway, that was in the past. I'm glad that we didn't have that. We don't have that anymore. But because of that foundation, right? And of course, me and my leadership at the time, we jealously guarded that. We tell ourselves, we must not allow any divas, to come out in our midst. We must not allow any one of us to become divas. And everyone is part of the team, and everybody share the same load. All right, gets treated equally, no special treatment. Okay, and I'm glad that today, even with the profile of our musicians, there's this spirit of humility that I'm really, really very thankful to God for. I see that even in so-called professional musicians and all that. And those of you who are obviously very talented, multi-talented, multi-instrumentalists, can sing, can write song, can do sound. Yet, I see a humility and I see a spirit of service. So let's continue to guard that jealously. Let's make that a permanent culture of Lsbc worship team, that everybody is a team member, nobody is a superstar, nobody is a diva. Okay, and let's continue to work on that basis. Yeah. So this is where we are today. We even have a choir. Unfortunately, they couldn't be deployed for the last 2 years, but 2 weeks ago they were back. So they will be back more, right? And hopefully we can then recruit more also. One of the reasons why we decided to set up the choir was we were reaching a point where people were beginning to see us as, so what I call elite group, that people don't dare to join us, don't dare to even apply to join us because they see the standard as being too high for them. Yeah. So as a result, worship team became a group of specialists, those who are able to play music or sing and musically inclined. And I thought that is not healthy long-term wise. It will create a divide. And the choir, I thought, is a good avenue to get as many people as possible to join us. So long as you are interested in singing and you can hold a tune, right? Then you make it, and then you can participate. Because worship ministry shouldn't be just confined to highly competent musicians, and specialists. It should be open to as many as possible, where we can. But at the same time, we also have to keep moving forward, keep improving. We cannot go back to the old days where people say it's not about the skill, it's about the heart. Yeah, I think we have to continually improve, and we are. Maybe later we can talk about what else we can do to make the worship experience better for the church. At the end of the day, right? Why do we exist? Why are we here? Really is to serve the congregation. Right? I hope we will never ever forget that. From the worship leader who plays the rap, all the way down to the band leader who executes it, and the band itself when you are rehearsing. Never forget that your primary duty is to serve the congregation. It is to create the best possible worship experience for them, to create the most conducive environment for them to have an encounter with God. So when you plan your rap, when you arrange your music, how you play, your approach towards your playing, even down to your individual instrument, has got to be guided by that. That you're not there to try something new, try an interesting idea, or God forbid, show off your skill or something that you just learned. Those are tools to serve the bigger purpose, which is to create the best experience for the congregation. Yeah, and I hope that for many, many more years to come, Lsbc worship team will be known for that. That when we play, there's a special anointing, there's a special presence of God. And at the same time, the music is excellent. Yeah, so that's really what I have to share. In terms of looking forward and all that, I thought it may be something good for me to pick it up later after I've heard from some of you. So at this point, I want to just open the floor up for any questions. You can ask anything you want about my personal life, about church worship team, or about worship in general, or you can bring up anything about the worship team that you may wish to discuss, something in your heart or some question that you may have. Yeah. So yes, anyone? Yeah, or you can just raise your hand or whatever. Yeah. Any questions that you may have, about what we're going to do or anything? Yeah.
Okay. Hello, James here. Maybe I'll just start the ball rolling and ask a question. So I remember this recently, like someone was sharing with me that sometimes they feel quite intimidated when they're playing, or in fact when they watch us, or when they first join us on the worship team. And they say that, oh, sometimes they feel a lot of pressure, especially when they come from a smaller church. Like I think a bit like your experience that you mentioned, where they come over and then they feel like, are we becoming very we focus a lot on the technicalities and the way we execute it. So I guess my question is maybe for you personally, like how do you reconcile like being professional and being excellent and just focusing on the presence of God? I know you kind of talked a bit about it just now during your sharing, but maybe where we are at now, how do we reconcile that, lor? Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think it is a process that every musician has to go through. Okay. What do I mean? I think when you started off where you are technically not so good, right, you will struggle, okay, to try and play something that is challenging. And because you're not technically competent yet, your focus is 100% on your playing, right? And that will have to affect the way you worship. I'm just being very honest, okay? So if, let's say, as a drummer, all right, I'm still not that confident of doing certain fills or not so confident about keeping time and all that, then during the worship itself, I will be focusing a lot more on that, and that will affect, the way I worship, or I can only rely on those pockets where I'm more relaxed, right, to steer myself back to focus on the worship. But as you become more and more competent, the focus begin to shift, right? So like right now, I can afford to be almost 100% focused on the worship and still not forget what I'm supposed to play. Yeah, because I don't need to think so much anymore. It is part of me already. Okay, it's like speech, right? The initial stage when you try to use more difficult words, you will think more, right? But gradually, it will come to a stage where you don't think about what you're going to say. It just comes out naturally, right? It just comes out, the way that you have always been trying to practice, to speak that way. But after a period of practice, it becomes natural. And it's the same with music. Okay, I didn't regret that period where we were drilling very hard on technical skill, because it got us to this present period where many of us are able to express ourselves during worship and still play skillfully. But for someone who is not there yet, they have to go through that process, and that process is going to be very uncomfortable. Okay, and you're going to push back, and the most common pushback is, like what I said, do you really need to be so focused on the skill? Isn't it the heart that counts? Yes and no, lor. It's true. But then if you use that to justify not practicing and not improving, then I think it's wrong. All right. But if you say that is the end state, then I totally agree. You have to get to a point where you are technically so competent that you can be totally just focused on worshiping God, even as you are playing. Yeah. And so that maybe it is the struggle or the tension, and it's a process, and eventually you will get there, which is why for us, if we really want to go down the technical track, right, we'd have been far better than we are today already, honestly, if you want to do that. We are not incapable of reaching production quality if we want. We can just assemble the best team, all right, and really drill the technical skill. And in a couple of years, we will be like your New Creation Church, your CD Harvest, and all those big production quality kind of service. But we deliberately decided against that. That's why you see the way the teams are spread out. It's always, a partnership, right? The better ones with the younger ones, so that there is a constant improvement taking place. Yeah. But the compromise today is, of course, we will never become, the very polished production quality kind of worship team technically. Okay. But I think that is not really the most important thing. What is more important is that you are at a level where your skills and your competence allow you to express yourself fully, to God. Thanks, James, for the question.
Hi, James.
Hi,
This is
Gordon.
Gordon. Hey, thanks for sharing. Really learn a lot from your experiences. Can I just ask a quick question? Like you shared earlier that it's hard for such a big group in the worship team to get to know one another better. Is there any way that we can have some sort of bonding retreat, whatever, that we can actually interact more as a group?
Yeah, we've been trying to do that. In fact, I'm glad to announce that we managed to secure some budget, right? Pastor Susan, we have some budget for retreat-related kind of activities. The big problem now is how to do it, lor. Yeah, because we have COVID measures, and then there are so many of us. Yeah, but I hear you, and I'm quite sure you speak for many of us here as well. So let the core team crack our heads, see what we can do. Maybe we can do decentralized bonding, but with people that you don't normally interact with. So definitely not your regular band members. Yeah. I mean, last time before COVID, the pre-COVID days, I don't know. I mean, we have ever done. I still remember we went for a concert. I brought the sound. Yeah, sound crew and some musicians. We went to a concert. I still remember it was I can't remember who was the artist, but it was this R&B singer, this lady, blonde hair lady. I can't remember her name. Yeah, but we went to Esplanade and we had a good time because during that concert itself, they had sound issues. Can you imagine, right? People are paying so much money for a concert, but they had soundman issue and they had to replace the soundman. And then we heard how the sound instantly changed, when the second soundman took over and all that. So there was a lot of things to discuss. But yeah, these are the kind of bonding that we can do. Go check out gigs, go check out performances. Yeah, he also on the chat, right? Yeah, Elder Kevin was there. But if you have any suggestion, please feel free to let us know. So know what we can do. Yeah.
The James,
other challenge we're having.
You have a question at the chat, huh? Just to.
Oh, okay. Okay, from Yang about how do you think the worship arena will evolve in the next maybe 10 to 20 years, especially in Lsbc? Wow. Okay, very big question. There seems to be a greater shift to the digital music. Of course, I might be wrong. Or does Lsbc need to react in today's? Can the Lsbc style of worship remain relevant? Okay. So, okay, the fun question I'll do with later. Okay. My personal view, okay, strictly personal view is I always feel that the music, the mode of music, whatever style, be it rock, jazz, even techno and all that, those are just forms of expression. So what really matters is the content and the substance of the expression. Okay, so I have no issues with rock music being applied to a praise song. I have no issue with jazz, blues, and all that, because those are just musical forms, and those are musical forms invented by human beings, right? So it's us. I mean, God created us. God gave us that talent, that skill, and out of that talent and that skill, these forms of music come out. So what's wrong with applying that, towards worshiping God? Yeah, it's just that certain form of music tends to be tagged with certain themes that are not suitable, for church. Before this techno thing, right? 20 years ago, rock music was the one that all the churches were up against, because rock music is related to drugs, sex, violence, right? Because a lot of rock songs were written with those themes, and so people tend to relate. But as musicians, I think we should be able, right, and mature enough to separate musical style from musical content. Yeah. So back to Yong Yang's question, I am actually quite excited to explore more personally, this electronic music. The only thing is, do we have the competence to do it? Do we have people who are interested enough to do it? And then, of course, if we do it, do we need to buy more gear? Because now if you look at those modern concert settings, right? Just quote an example, right? I watched Blackpink's concert. Okay, Not that I'm a Blackpink fan, but because my daughter is into K-pop, so that's my way of connecting with her, all right, to get myself acquainted with K-pop so that I can have a discussion with her that she doesn't find boring, right? So, and then I, of course, discovered Blackpink. I actually thought that their music was really, really good. So I checked out their band. Wow, their band is a super band, you know. I think there are no Koreans inside their band. It's all Americans, you know, black guys and all that. And the amount of gear that they use to generate the sound, the beats, you know, the music. Those of you who have listened to Blackpink music, you know, it's actually very much the style of music that Yong Yang was talking about, you know. And I always thinking, can we have that in church? You know, will it be too much? Will people start thinking, hey, how come your worship service sound like K-pop? Yeah, that is something that I'm still mulling through. I think we can try. We can take baby steps first, you know, and see how people respond to it. But I think there shouldn't be anything to stop us. Certainly not from a theological point of view. But like I say, the ultimate aim is to serve the congregation and to bring about the most conducive environment for worship for them, right? So if by introducing this kind of music, we end up creating a K-pop concert atmosphere instead, that I wouldn't want to go there. That will be my stance. Right? I'm guided by this principle of creating the best possible worship environment for the congregation. But of course, if, for example, in a youth service, you know, the youth are more open to that, and in fact, it helps them engage, then by all means, let's go ahead. Okay, and your fun question. So NCC or Lsbc better? Wow, better in what sense? If you are talking about music, the technical aspect, I still think they are ahead of us for a very simple reason. Okay, the worship team are all full-timers. Yeah, they do nothing but rehearse, play music, you know, and write their own songs and all that. I don't think we can match with them. Even those people who qualify to serve, the layperson who qualify to serve, are mostly professional musicians outside. Yeah, or you are able to play at that level. That means all of them are, you know, like Pastor Susan type one. Can you imagine, like the whole band, they're all like Pastor Susan type? So I think it will be too much for us, for me to say that, you know, we are comparable. So technical skill, no, SCC better. But as a church, of course, LSCC better lah. You know, it's the best church to me. Okay.
There are two more questions. Maybe look at Barnabas one first.
Bunny first, right? Yeah.
How do we
respond? Yeah. How do we respond to LSBC members approaching us and commenting about our playing? I had one guy who said he don't like those intense electric guitar stuff. I didn't know how to answer him. Okay, just using that specific example that he doesn't like the intense electric guitar stuff. I think that is probably personal preference more than anything else, and we have to accept that music is a very highly subjective thing. Even the best musicians in the world get this kind of stupid comments, right? So from a personal perspective, I wouldn't take it too much to heart. Okay, I certainly wouldn't allow it to affect me, but I want to also ask myself also whether whatever the person say is valid or not. You know, if it's really valid and you resonate with it, then I think you only owe it to yourself, right, to make adjustments or to improve. But in terms of how to answer, right, I think if whether you agree or don't agree, I will just, since I don't know that fella, I assume you don't know that fella very well, at least. I will just tell the person, thank you for your feedback, okay, and and smile. Okay, I don't want to even acknowledge that I agree or disagree. I don't want even to tell him that, oh, okay, yeah, next time, I don't even want to say anything to make him think that, okay, next time I try not to do that. You know, I'll try to do that. I don't even want to do that. All right, because if you don't agree, then you don't have to say that you agree, you know. But if you don't agree, you don't have to tell him you don't agree also, right? Because I don't think it's wise to do that. I'll just say thank you for your feedback and smile. Yeah. And if the guy is smart enough, he will know, yeah, and he will move on. Okay, so then we have Jia Yan. How do we encourage people who, sorry, is there more to the question? I'm only reading
below,
how do we encourage people.
Below. We go around below. How do we encourage people who are interested in serving in the worship ministry but don't see themselves as competent enough by their standards compared to their perception of what they see or hear on stage?
Okay. Now, we have a solution already, right? Thanks to James Low and Yong Yang's team. We have the worship primer thing now, right? Yeah, that was a big solution because it's inevitable that as the team improve, all right, the barrier becomes higher and higher. Yeah. And we cannot compromise, right? We have to continue to improve. And part of the improvement will include recruiting people who are more competent. So there is a bit of a catch-22 situation, right? But then once you are at the level where you only recruit the best, then it sort of makes ourselves too exclusive. And so when they came out with the worship primer to prepare people for worship rehearsal, I thought that was very good because firstly, you don't turn people away straight away. You don't make people feel like, they are not good enough to be part of the worship team. But instead, you give them an opportunity to try it out. And during that process of trying out in the primer, some will realize that, okay, maybe I'm good enough, but I'm just not confident. That's why I felt that, I wouldn't be able to make it. But at the same time, those who are really not good enough may then realize that, hey, they need to do more work. They need to go and practice on their own or take up some courses and all that for maybe a couple of more years before they come back again. So the worship primer is an excellent way to take people through that process without putting them down, without making them feel inferior in any way or rejected in any way. Yeah. So I think I am very happy with that primer program, and we have had how many runs already, Pastor Susan? One run, yeah. So seems like the feedback was pretty good. Maybe we can hear from Yong Yang and the rest who have been involved later about the experience with the people who came for the program. And I will certainly want to push for this program to continue. So if anybody who comes to you and say that, hey, I want to join the worship team, but I don't know whether I'm good enough or not, sign up for the worship primer. If you're really interested, then you'll find out for yourself whether it is you're good enough or not. And I think another plus to that is with that program, you help them, come to a realization themselves that they're not good enough. It's always easier that way than to have someone that you don't really know tell you that, hey, sorry, you're not good enough. That is more damaging, if you know what I mean. Yeah, but I think we owe it to them to provide them the opportunity to find out the truth for themselves. Because if the truth is you're not good enough, then why do I want to bother? Why do I want to lie to you, right? Why do I want to give you the wrong impression that you're good enough, when you're not? Okay, but it's the way we convey that message, and I think the primer is a very, very good way to do that. Yeah.
Okay, we have one more question from Pastor Ruth. Does the worship
team members need to prepare for the bilingual service? Okay. I think it has to be yes. Okay, although the bilingual service, it was a very interesting concept, and I think at the recent elders retreat we spoke a lot about it. I am personally excited for it because I think it makes a lot of sense. Okay, and if we can pull it off, it will be a very unique style, of doing church, a very unique way of doing church. And I have a good sense that they will be well received. So if we do go that way, the immediate ramification for the worship team is we need to play Chinese songs. Okay. I think for the musicians that's less stressful, right? It's just a matter of adjusting to a different style of playing or playing certain style that you're not used to. Okay, but that one is a matter of time. Okay, and for many of you, in fact, for most of you, it won't take more than 2-3 months before you get familiarized. The biggest challenge are the vocalists. Okay, those who your daily life, you also don't 讲华语, right? So sing Chinese song, some of y'all fish in water, some, yeah, will need more work lah. So we'll try to figure out our way around that. Okay lah, maybe y'all can stone me, but at the retreat, someone actually challenged me and say that, do you think the worship team can do it or not? And I say 100%, I'm confident we can. Yeah, so I say that lah. Committed already. Yeah, well, I dare to say that because I've seen how we function when we play Chinese songs. Yeah, we don't play often enough, true. But those occasions where we have been called upon to play, I think we managed to wing it lah. Okay, and if we do start, it will not be straight away into the deep end. It will be gradual, right? And there's always this fallback that I will raise now at the elders level to say that, hey, you need to give the worship team a bit more time, to get used to singing Chinese song. Maybe initially when we sing, we still have to learn how and paying and all that, and some of the pronunciation may be off, and all that. But eventually we will get there. I believe we will get there. Yeah. So in terms of preparation, start listening to more Chinese praise and worship songs. Your streams of praise and all that. That will help. Okay. Yeah. But I personally am excited. I hope you all are also, because really for the longest time, I always felt that we are Chinese, but then a lot of Christian Chinese are very Angmo. You know what I mean? Right. So if we can, incorporate more of that Chineseness within us, right? Into our expression to God, into church itself, I think it can only, be something that's positive. It will also totally change this image that, Christians are more Taiwan, that we are elite class. People don't come because they feel that, they are not rich enough, they're not educated enough. Yeah, I think a bilingual service may be a very effective way, to take down those barriers. Okay, so I hope that has alleviated at least some of your fears. Yeah, no pressure. Okay, hey, but Yong Yang, no need to be scary. Our drums sound the same whether it's playing Chinese song or English song. Okay.
You have a question from Dylan?
Yeah. What is your perspective on spontaneity in a worship set? Example, like playing a song or changing an arrangement that wasn't initially contemplated in the planning of worship, but something that feels right for the moment to the worship leader. Okay. Yeah. This one always a question that will pop up. I have no issue if it is well executed. Right? Because what is the intention of spontaneity and free flow in worship? Is to lead the congregation into that spontaneous worship experience, correct? Free flow and just let the Holy Spirit move. Now, if you can do that competently, right, as a band, let's do it by all means. But if in the course of doing that, right, you make mistakes or you have train crashes that distract people from their worship, then the primary purpose for that has been destroyed. Right? Okay, so how do we get to that position? To be able to do that requires a certain level of musical competence. Okay, by that I mean firstly being able to express yourself freely technically. All right, to be free flow means, the worship leader go that way, you can go, and without missing a beat, without missing a note, right? And knowing what note to play, knowing what beat, right, to accompany the music, and to get there individually is one question, one thing. To be able to do that as a team, that requires another set of skills, what I call listening skills, the language skills. Do you know that when you play as a band, you are actually in a conversation? You're actually talking, speaking to one another. All right. And if you don't listen, right, and you're only thinking about what you want to say, then chances are that you will say something that is like, how come you suddenly talk about this when everybody else is talking about that? That kind of scenario will happen. And once that happens, flow doesn't happen. Okay. So this level of competence I'm talking about is the ability to listen, all right, and to then say something relevant, contribute to the conversation, bringing something that is matching, to the table. And that skill, right, is not something that you achieve by just practicing a lot, you know. That is something that you achieve by listening to a lot. Listening to a lot of different kinds of music, not just your praise and worship music. Right? Go and analyze, you know, like jazz. How do jazz musicians play? If you want to learn how to flow as a band, right? You must listen to jazz, right? How they interact, you know, how they take turns for different instruments to play, and how after an instrument finishes, how he then, you know, hands back to the band, how the band then hands back to the next musician. These are all things that you need to listen to understand how it works. You can read books about it, but until you go and listen, right, you will not understand what is meant by that. So that is another level of competence that we need to be able to accomplish, right? So the big question is, are we stuck? Of course not, right? How do we get there? I think we are at the stage now in our maturity where we can afford to have a bit more freedom. Okay. But the worship leader and the band leaders must be more intentional. Okay. So for a start, at least I will call it a rehearsed kind of flow. Okay. So think about the flow ahead. Don't just rely on the spot. All right, because I don't think we're there yet. Okay. You can practice a certain kind of flow where people, the whole band more or less know where we are going, you know, and what we're going to do. Now, the whole band may know that this is rehearsed, this is not spontaneous, but to the congregation, it's spontaneous. Now, you have to imagine it. To the congregation, it is spontaneous. Yeah. So let's start with that first. Okay. Then when you move on to a level where there's better chemistry, there's better understanding, all right, and the worship leader is able to communicate very effectively to the band, all right, and the band leader is able to effectively communicate to everybody else. Then we can try free flow, spontaneous kind of thing. Okay, and I'm prepared to try that, even if it means a couple of train crashes occasionally. Is fine, you know, because that's how we learn as well through the train crash. Yeah, but I'm certainly for doing that. But what I do not like is using that as an excuse for not practicing. Okay, then it becomes an abuse. You know, when you say, "I never mind lah, just roughly know can already." You know, things are so spontaneous anyway. Just turn out lah. You know, once you do that, right, you know what's the biggest problem? You will regress. You will actually get worse and worse. You know, your discipline will drop, your technical skill will drop, and after a while, you realize, hey, how come we are playing badly nowadays? Yeah. So, yeah, I hope that answers Dylan's question. Okay. Quack, someone must collect a Spotify Lsbc Chinese song list. Quack, you want to help us? Yeah. Okay, Marcus Loy can play Chinese songs. Yes. But I don't know whether he can sing Chinese song. Marcus, he can sing Chinese song.
Can sing in tongues.
Okay. That, I suppose, yeah, that works for the interim. Okay, so Susan said we welcome more vocals, worship leaders, we will volunteer to serve at Chinese. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, that's also another good way to practice. Just go to the Chinese congregation now. And I think now, at least for the band, right, Susan, a lot of the musicians are main service or youth musicians anyway.
Yes.
Okay. Wait till you play what's that? I can't read the second character. From Barney.
Pafu, the Beatitude song. It has a rap version.
Oh, okay. Oh, Beatitude is called Pafu. Wow. Okay. Well, I can see that everybody is very excited about doing Chinese songs. That's very good. I will let the elders board know that the worship team is excited and ready to go.
Okay, so really 12:04. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Anyone? We probably would like to have one last question if there is. We'll wait for a minute or two. Any other last questions? Anyone else?
Okay,
have
if
ready,
not,
yeah?
then maybe I'll just wrap up, all right, by just sharing a little bit about looking forward, okay. Firstly, I just want to commend everybody, you know, that in the last 2 years, we have done really, really well, okay, in a few aspects. First, I think is what I call the service attitude. So many of us were just stepping up, doing much more beyond what we have been doing usually, what we are usually required to do, to record worship segments, to do so many things, to adjust for the new environment that was literally thrown our lap, in a very short notice. And everybody rose to the occasion. We didn't complain, at least not too much. All right, we just, keep our head down and get down to work and just get things done. And I thought that was that was something that I'm very, very encouraged and very proud of to see. Everybody just doing that, really just to serve the church and just to serve God. So that's really, really excellent. And I think it's a good test for us, right? It shows that we are able to do more, solid stuff, moving forward. So now we're emerging from the pandemic. I think very, very soon service will be almost back to pre-COVID conditions already. So we can get ready for that, okay? And it's time to explore, new things, new styles of music, like Yong Yang say, but we will need those of you who are competent and interested in this area to take the lead, to teach us. All right. I hope all of us can continue to work on our individual craft, right, to be even better, more competent than we already are, and to continue to work towards. Okay, you see, maybe this sounds a bit ironical or even a bit contradictory. Let's continue to work towards the competence level of a production team, but then we never ever want to be a production team. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? You look at how good these professionals are doing, let that be your target, but then it is a target that you never want to achieve. It is just something that shows you the direction you want to head technically, okay? Because at the end of the day, what guides us, what governs us, right, is the spiritual, right? The main purpose of why we exist, and why we do what we do, all right, and that is to usher in the presence of God. And really, that's my vision, for the LSBC team in LSBC, that when people come to our church, they can sense the presence of God. And it is the presence of God that draws people to LSBC, not programs, not because we have a nice building, not because, our people are great, but because when they come here, they sense something different, that they can only explain by saying that God is real, and here in LSBC at Lorong Asu, I can find God, So the worship team has a very important role to play in creating the environment, and I hope every one of you, will have that objective also as you continue to serve. Yeah.
Okay, I want to thank Elder James for his sharing. I think you have learned much, his sharing, and you get to know him a lot more better. I do totally agree with what he said, that what really brings people to this church is the presence of God. And I pray that, I do pray that our worship ministry will continually be able to host God's presence in our midst and carry him here. And just as all of us would be doing, of old, as Levites that carries in and putting on our shoulder the hour of God and bringing his presence here. So I really pray that every one of us would carry this presence into our church each time whenever you serve on the worship platform. Okay, so we will end the session here. Just to do a bit of advertisement. We will have the next round of worship igniting series 2, okay, and it will be our dear brother Bunyao will be the one sharing. So it will be in the month of June. Do watch out on our LSBC, our worship English broadcast chat. I will keep you posted of the next session where Bunyao will be sharing. So that's about it. We will end the session today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.